Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the editor and writer at 48minutes.com, writer at Outkick.com. He is our Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, Merry Christmas and happy NBA season, baby.
Hey, they're all together now, aren't they? It's
yes.
Pretty cool. So, yeah, same to you. I'm very much looking forward to both.
So we haven't talked since the draft. The Cavs have played a whole preseason, which consisted of 4 games. We're going to talk about that in just a few moments, but the season starts today. And when you're listening to this, it's probably, either starting today or started a couple days ago. Sam, I just want to talk about just some of these headlines that this Cavs team has going into this season. And I want to start here because I think this is one of the most important ones. Head coach JB Bickerstaff. He came on board last year, had a really, really good thing going into the All-Star break, and then COVID kind of wrecked everyone's plans all around the world. Right now, he is fully entrenched as the Cavs head coach. No question about it. He is there. He has his system in place, and kind of was able to use last year as a little precursor. Sam, what does having a coach like that established, what does that bring to this team?
I think that brings a lot because of the way he performed and the job he did in the 11 games that he was the coach. He brings stability. He brings, I think, a calming presence, not just to the locker room, but to the sideline. And I really think right now, if you look at everything involving this team, JB Bickerstaff has proven to be their greatest hope.
Yes.
I just think his personality meshes very well with what the Cavs are trying to accomplish, and that's taking that next step, playing hard, regardless of who's out there, being cohesive, and being organized and looking like a professional outfit. That's their first goal this year, and they really did that in the 11 games under JB. And I just think his personality and his coaching style and his philosophy is just an excellent match for this team. So that's an A+. They're getting an A+ in the coaching department as far as I'm concerned, and everything I've seen from Coach Bickerstaff.
I think because of the calming presence that you just mentioned, it feels like he's been with the team longer than 11 games
Right.
last year. And I know this whole year seems like it's lasted 10 years and that there's been a really weird, NBA season in between then. But it really does feel like he's been with the Cavs as the head coach for a while. And, we both are huge Browns fans. And it also seems like the kind of rhythm and on the same page, and it's that Stefanski and Barry show for the Browns. We really see it with Altman and Bickerstaff. And I think that just feeds into this calming presence for rookies, for the young core that they've had. They've had a lot of turmoil already. For the veterans who are just like, man, I'm sick of this. I really think it's just a win all across the board, like you said.
Right. He is well respected by the veterans. And when you win over the veterans like Kevin Love, Drummond, Larry Nance Jr., your younger players are going to buy in too, because they kind of follow the lead of the veterans. So I just think, JB Bickerstaff has been around the NBA game so long, with his father, Bernie, having been a longtime NBA coach and now a senior advisor with the Cavs. They just have that personality that just fits the NBA in terms of leadership. And I gotta tell you too, on a personal level, before JB became coach, I being around the Cavs, I'd run into Bernie sometimes and run into JB sometimes, and they're really two of the nicest people I've ever met. And forget NBA, just two really nice people, very welcoming and warm. And in a league, I would say 90% of the people are pretty nice. They are like way up at the top. So I hope for success for JB because of that. You root for a person like that because they're such a good person.
And to think last year going into the season, they had Beeline with all these unknown expectations and kind of whole different workflows. And I'm going to do things my way and this way. I don't care how the NBA runs. And it just seems like it's the complete opposite direction with Bickerstaff, how he has been around the league forever and he knows he's not surprised by anything. And I don't want to say Beeline would have been surprised by NBA stuff, but because it's still basketball, but at some point it is different. And and I think that does play into buying the veterans in and understanding days off and understanding practices and understanding travel like that matters.
Right. Well, you first of all, you were right the first time. Beeline was surprised. He was surprised at how little practice time there was. And just there's constant games in the NBA. It's a constant flow of games. Whereas in college, you often get a week between games. You sure don't get that in the NBA. You have way more practice time in college. And he was, Coach Beeline had been in the college game for 40 years. He had done things a certain way. And, a lot of times in college, you'll go talk to the players individually after the game and kind of, coach them up a little bit after the games. Whereas NBA veterans don't really warm up to that very often. Once the game's over and the coach has given his 5-10 minute speech, it's done. They're done, because guess what? There's another game tomorrow night.
Yep.
So John Beeline's an excellent coach. We know this. We've seen it in college over and over again. He just was not a fit for this team, and he probably may not be a fit for the NBA, but
yeah.
There are different levels of coaching and he probably would do a better job at the college level than JB Bickerstaff. But I think JB Bickerstaff will prove to be the better NBA coach. And that's what you care about as the Cavaliers.
And before we start talking about Sexton and Garland and Porter Jr. and Okoro, which we will, I didn't want to overlook how big of a deal he is as our coach and how important that is to their development and the team's chemistry and just the calming sense and the maturity and the identity that he's going to bring. I think it's going to get overlooked a little bit because I think there is a lot of excitement for some of these players and a lot of questions that we're going to look to. And I just, I'm really glad that he's the Cavs coach. I think he's going to be great. And I can't wait to meet him and watch the team play, man. It's going to be good to have Cavs basketball back. Sam, have you missed it?
Yeah. I think,
March. April is when they last played.
Yeah, it was March. Was it March, 10th, 11th or something? Yeah. And I think that, having been around the league now for 20 years, it's always amazed me. Cleveland fans love their pro basketball. They love their Cavaliers. They really do. Yeah. I mean, it's a Browns town. Let's not kid ourselves. But they love it surprises me sometimes when the Cavs are bad, how much interest there is around them. And you know what? A lot of it's because of longevity. This team's been here 50 years now, and people go way back with them and go way back with this organization. And I'm always a little, just as kind of, a media guy who's kind of between the fans and the team, it always kind of warms my heart how much fans love this team, regardless of how well they're playing. So I think that everybody's excited that they're back. Yes, absolutely. Even though the expectations aren't real high.
Yeah. And I agree. It is a Browns town. Columbus is a Browns town, no matter what people try to say. But I think more than anything, it's just a Cleveland town. Like there's pride in Cleveland and they take the utmost pride in the Browns. I mean, they fought to get that name back, but I think they're proud of the Cavs. I think there's pride in Cleveland basketball. And I would not be surprised if you're going to see a bump in attention and popularity and just rambunctiousness feeding off the Browns' victories, especially if they start to allow some people in there and they got to have some outlet to express like how good the Browns. I think we're going to see some you're going to see people feed off the Browns and carry that over to the Cavs. So obviously Bickerstaff is a big deal and a big part of that. But let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of reason to be excited about this Cavs basketball team, aside from the coaching and how Kobe Altman and Bickerstaff seem to be on the same page. Let's start with Sexton. Sam, what needs to happen with Colin Sexton for him to take this leap? I mean, he was playing incredible basketball last year after the All-Star break. What does he need to do to take that leap and start getting some like national consistent buzz?
I think if he plays like he did, at the end of last season, he will definitely get some consistent national buzz and more notification. The one thing you love about the kid is he's relentless.
Yep.
He does not, he's a scorer first and foremost. He knows how to put the ball on the basket, and he does it with great consistency. He's an attack guy. He goes all the time, one speed. And it's nice to have a player like that on your team. He doesn't miss games. Now, I know he missed some preseason games with an ankle issue. But regular season, he has not missed a game. He plays through pain, and you just love, you want a young player like that with talent who has a ton of passion. And I think that as he, gains more experience, usually your third year in the NBA is the year that you finally feel like, you know what, I've got this kind of figured out, and this is it. But at absolute worst, he is a guy who's going to score a lot of points, and that is the name of the game. You got to put the ball in the basket. That's what everything's designed to put the ball in the basket, and he can do that. He can fill it up, and that's, whether he's going to be a super duper star, I don't think so, but I think that he will be a guy who's going to make some all-star game appearances and is a guy who can fill it up, and that's a great place to start. We've seen that throughout history. Teams always have, some of the greatest, most underrated players are guys who are just scorers. And he's one of those guys right now. I mean, I look back, going way back to guys like Bernard King, those guys are forwards, Alex English, Purvis Short. Those guys are guys who are just consistently forgotten, but they were great in their era. And I think Sexton could be one of those players who's just a guy who puts the ball on the hoop on a consistent basis for his entire career.
Has Bickerstaff ever coached a player like Sexton? I'm trying to think through some of his teams. I don't know has he ever coached a player like Sexton? I mean, he was...
To be honest, I don't remember who he coached with Houston. I don't know if Harden was there when he was an interim coach there.
Was it 2015?
I think Harden was.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, he was.
And then when he coached Memphis, that was kind of that grit and grind team. Well, I think with Conley and Zach Randolph and those guys. So and it might have been right after that, actually. But either way, no, I think Colin's unique in his own way. And, you got to give him credit. He flourished under Bickerstaff. So, guess who else flourished under Bickerstaff was Matthew Dellavedova. Had his best stretch of the season in those 11 games. He turned back the clock. So I just think that, you can't go wrong with JB in charge, especially with these younger players.
Yeah. And we're not saying Sexton is like James Harden. It's just like James Harden scores buckets. That's what he does. He gets buckets. And, I think that might be where the similarities end.
Well, yeah. James Harden also gets double digits assists a lot of games. He's the premier scorer. And where he plays next, we don't know, but he is definitely, if you can reach that level, you're pretty good.
So obviously a lot of, I'm going to say pressure on Sexton to kind of continue to elevate his game and take the next step and continue to develop and take that third year leap that we see so many players make, whether it's Tatum or Jaylen Brown. These players that entering the third year, you want to see them, continue to grow. And if Sexton wants, the next contract here or to really become the face of the franchise, it's going to happen this year, Sam, or this is going to be it. It's his time. It's his time.
That's exactly it. Yeah. This is the year to do that.
Someone else is time might be up. Darius Garland. Do we talk about Darius Garland a little bit?
Yeah.
Is this a make or break year for him?
Yeah, it's not fair that it is, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
He only played 5 college games. He came into a situation last year that was tough because the Cavs already had a player his size that they're kind of building around in Sexton, and Garland had to share the backcourt with him. I have a lot of, I'll be honest, and I think I'm not alone when there are a lot of question marks surrounding Darius. And again, maybe it's not fair being, as young as he is, as little as experience as he's had. But this is, we talk about this being kind of like, well, it's a development and growth and all that, but you don't really have that kind of time. When you're drafted, people expect you to be good by the middle of year 2, if, maybe not great, but better than Darius has been. And I have some questions, from what I've seen. Is he athletic enough to be a starting point guard in the league? Maybe he is. I'm not saying no. I think that question is not answered though. Is he going to be the type of point guard that is, I think there's a lot of questions about his ability to distribute. I think he's a good passer, but does he make the right pass? He's still learning that. Is he going to be a winning point guard? I'm not saying the answer is no, but I think that question is out there, and there are a lot of things he's got to answer. I heard one scout I talked to said, he said he thought Darius was the kind of player who really doesn't really do anything for anybody but himself when he's out there. And it's not saying he's a selfish player. It's saying that he's a good individual player, but is he a guy who's going to lift the team to wins during his career? And I think in fairness, it's way too soon to make a judgment on that with him. But this will be a huge year for him. Yeah. He can't have another year like he had last year. Even if this is just his second year, he can't. He's got to show, marked improvement from last year. I think by the trading deadline, they could go in another direction.
It doesn't help when you see players like Tyler Hero, who's already established as a borderline all-star.
Well, yeah, a lot of teams missed on Tyler Hero.
He went 13. He went 13. We had the 5th pick. 5. If we had picked, it's the draft's always 2020, but it's just that's not helping anything when it's show
not
me
helping
now
at all. Tyler Hero's playing in the finals and looking like the best rookie out of that class, other than Morant and Williamson. So,
I'm looking here. Tough. Garland played the 3rd most minutes of rookies last year.
Okay.
So hopefully this year, Garland shows something. Sam, what have you seen in the preseason?
I heard a lot that he was tearing it up in training camp and all that. And then, during the preseason, he wasn't bad. He just looked about the same. I didn't see, and it's hard to tell. Preseason's so hard to tell. Some guys are outstanding during the preseason. The veterans don't play that hard.
Well, if you're Darius Garland, you got to show out in preseason. You don't have the luxury of having a standard preseason. If you know what I mean? Like if you're really wanting to make a statement, then you need to dominate those minutes and you need to be playing harder and trying harder, not kind of.
Right. Well, and JB Bickerstaff talked about that a little bit, but I thought Darius was solid, but again, I don't think that the questions were answered, and I don't know that they're going to be answered for a while, nor should we expect them to be answered for a little bit.
Yeah. We do have some questions and answers with Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah.
Who seemed to have escaped some legal trouble. And that's probably all that we'll talk about that, Sam. But I just feel like his ceiling might be one of the highest on the team.
Absolutely. He's obviously super athletic, plays with great passion, has the potential to fill it up from time to time. I just think, again, like I said, he's got a super high ceiling. Is he going to be able to stay focused? I think that when he's on the court, he's pretty focused, and I don't think that I'll tell you this, Chase. When I talked to him in the locker room last year, nicest guy. They're everybody on the team's nice. He was far and away the nicest. He's just he's just be like your buddy, So it surprised me a little bit when we heard about the legal stuff, because he grew up in a tough situation, a real tough situation, and I know the Cavs are working with him, and it's going to be about maturity with him. That's the bottom line. It might sound harsh, but if you can grow up and do the things that you're supposed to do off the court and stay out of trouble. Look, you're allowed to have fun, man. Just don't go, don't cross the line. And I think once he learns that and stays within the boundaries of staying out of trouble, he can be an all-star. He really can. And I think that the Cavs are working with him on that and explaining that to him. So, but basketball wise, there's tons of reasons to be excited about him. He just needs to get into practice and get on the court, because he's not going to learn watching he's not going to improve watching from the sideline.
Yeah. Is he going to start?
I don't think he'll start. I think they'll go with Garland and Sexton. And Porter will, I don't know if he'll play first game or not. It might be a week or so before we see him. I don't know that, but he'll play the same role he was playing last year. And if Garland doesn't get it, they'll move Sexton back to the point guard and start Porter Jr., which is, I know, a lot of the way fans would like to see them go.
Yep. Hey, ask me how excited I am about Isaac Okoro. Just ask me.
You're very excited.
Oh, I love me some Okoro, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Man.
He certainly had some really bright moments that you would not expect from a guy who's playing on. I mean, he went out there and played like he owned the court for a little bit.
You know who wasn't surprised?
What's
this
that?
Guy who said, "Hey, he reminds me of Kawhi Leonard." This guy's not surprised that he dominated on defense and produced an offense and made outside. This guy wasn't surprised.
You were not. No, I got to give you credit. You really built him up, and it'll be interesting because, of course, Cedi Osman played so well during the preseason.
Good.
I think they'll start Cedi and bring Okoro off the bench slowly, but Cedi's going to have to be consistent to keep that role if he does in fact start. So it's a nice thing for them to have is, hey, Cedi, you have to play very well to keep that job or to keep your minutes, even if you don't start, to keep your minutes. So I think Okoro gives you reason to think, you know what? This could be kind of cool watching him out there with Sexton, Kevin Porter Jr., and Okoro running the court and finishing and seeing how that goes. I think that's going to be one of the most intriguing things to watch with this team.
I am all in on Isaac Okoro. And Sam, I don't want to say he's going to be the best pick in the draft, but I think he might have the longest career of people in the draft.
I watched the ESPN expert, Mike Schmitz. I think that's his name. Forgive me if I got it wrong, but he's a draft expert. And this was just like 2 nights ago, and he was saying how excited he was about Okoro and how big of a surprise he was during the preseason.
I mean, I know right now the size of real estate on Okoro Island is pretty cheap. So Sam, you can come on over if you want and buy some stock. But man, I love that kid. I love how he plays defense, and he's playing smart too. Like actually like playing smart defense. And it was just, I'm all in, man. I'm all in. I love it.
Well, Coach Bickerstaff said that he has no fear. And that's a huge thing when you're coming in as a rookie, just to go out there and attack and let the chips fall wherever they may. And Okoro did that right away. So that's a good sign.
You know, you're right. I think Cedi does give the Cavs some like time that they can ease him into the fire, not just throw him right in, but with a shortened season, like I would just get him out there, man. I would.
Well, unless you think you're going to the playoffs or going to win a series or something, you might as well.
Just get him reps. Just get him to learn the speed of this game. I'm just all in on Okoro. I love him. And there might be an Okoro jersey in my future. I cannot confirm or deny that, but
I bet there is. I'm gonna gamble on that.
All right, so we talked about Bickerstaff, we talked about the young core, and I think the third headline of the season you'll see a lot of are the Cavs trades and some other moves throughout the season. Sam, I think we can say that the end of the season roster is not going to look like our current roster right now. What potentially do you see this team doing as this kind of readjusted season moves forward?
Well, there are a number of scenarios that could play out with Andre Drummond, and I think the most likely is a trade, because you don't want to lose him for nothing at the end of the year. He's going to be eligible to be an unrestricted free agent. Now, if you can come to terms on some sort of contract extension, which they haven't been able to do, and I don't think that those talks are ongoing, but you can revisit that later in the year. I think that's he's your most likely trade candidate, obviously, and that would shake things up because he's 6'11", he leads the league in rebounds, he averages 17 points a game. He's a big part of what you're doing this season, and if you move him, well, then you're kind of starting again from square one. But they may not have a choice. If you can't come to agreement on a contract extension, you've kind of got to move them. You can't lose them for nothing. I mean, you could let them walk away, and then you have all that salary cap space. But what are you going to do with it? Because you're not going to be signing any big name free agents. So they'll have a big decision to make on him, and I think they're playing it wise right now. I think they tried to move him. They had been talking with the Celtics about Gordon Hayward, and then if you got a Hayward, then you bring him here and you sign him like you did in Charlotte. But I think that they'll continue to keep their eyes peeled for deals surrounding Drummond, only because you can't build with him all year and then all of a sudden he's gone for nothing. So
yeah,
there's a lot of decisions. That I'm not saying that he's definitely a goner, because I don't think that's the case. I think that he could return here for, could get an extension, and maybe they could work out a deal, and then that solves that. But right now it's a large question hanging over the roster.
Yeah, if you're Andre Drummond and you're looking at, hey, I got maybe 5 more years left, 6, 7 more years left in the league before my production starts to drop, and I want to win. I don't know if the Cavs would be his next stop, but if he sees the potential and says, hey, I could be a part of something really exciting for the next 3 years, if Okoro really is someone special and Sexton continues to develop, and I do, it's not a really bad spot to, if you can be patient and see how just a couple of chips fall, then I think this could be something. But I think it's just going to really, it's going to be up to him. And I think the Cavs' early season success and that young core's development and Bickerstaff, I think, play a huge role in Drummond's decision.
Right. If you are playing like you did at the end of last year, where they were 5-6, it wasn't like they were killing it, but they were playing the right way and doing things the right way. That is really what a veteran player wants. You can't play the right way and do the right things and go 2-9 and the veteran's going to be happy. But if you can go 500-ish, then you're talking, look, the players, we talk about fans and teams and management saying, well, we gotta get this certain record so we can get a high lottery pick, whatever. The players don't want to have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
They want to win. And if you're not winning, if you are winning, you can become the San Antonio Spurs. You don't have to be in a huge market. You don't have to have huge superstars. You can become a destination, because it truly is all about culture for the players. It truly is. We'll hear, yes, they would prefer to be in Los Angeles, but there's only 12 spots open in Los Angeles. So if you can build a culture that's sustainable, like the San Antonio Spurs, the Memphis Grizzlies had that for a while.
Yep, they did. Yep, you're right.
Where uh, you become a team that, because your culture is a place where people want to go. Jimmy Butler, people are shocked to learn this, but he truly did not go to the Miami Heat because he wanted to live in Miami.
Right.
Because he could go to Miami. These guys can go to Miami whenever they want. They get on their own plane and they fly there between games if they want. He went there because Pat Riley said, you know what? We never tank. We never tank. Sometimes it doesn't work out and we're spinning our wheels. Sometimes we end up being bad, but we never do it on purpose. If you come here, we're going to try to win. And if the Cavs are trying to win, it's the old, Field of Dreams line. You build it and they will come. And you can start becoming a player in free agency if they do that. And you will keep guys like Drummond around. You'll keep Sexton, those kind of guys, if you start playing to win.
This is what the young Cavs and Bickerstaff and, hey, maybe we can keep Drummond if we can sniff the playoffs. This is what they're up against in the East. There are 8 playoff spots, and 5 of them are pretty much already penciled in. Celtics, they're going to make it. Heat, they're going to make it. Bucks, they're going to make it. Raptors, they're going to make it. Nets, they're going to make it.
Yeah.
76ers probably going to make it. That's 6.
I think they'll make it. There's 6. The only one that could potentially, in my mind, experience a drop would be the Raptors. And I only say that
you
because
bite your tongue.
I only say that because, number one, they have to play their home games in Tampa, so they have no home court advantage, very little. Number two, Kyle Lowry's getting a little older. They don't have great depth.
They won my heart in the bubble. That series against the Celtics was just beautiful basketball, and I love the heart of a champion.
I mean, more likely than not, they're going to be just fine. But I'm just saying, of all the teams, I don't see any of the other 6 teams dropping off.
Okay.
If anybody's going to do it, it'd be the Raptors.
There are 2 spots: the Pacers, the Magic, and maybe the Raptors. So 2.5 spots.
Right.
That's it. That's not a lot of wiggle room. The East is really good, right?
It's
the East
a lot better. Yep.
LeBron went to the West and everyone went to the East because they're terrified of LeBron.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So there's not a lot of wiggle room for the Cavs. A very, very small target for them to hit. I think it's doable. I think, looking at, some of those other teams that could get in there. The Hornets are going to try to do something.
I mean, the Wizards.
Yeah. So I don't know.
You got a shot. If you're the Cavs, put it this way: things have to go well. You have to have your young players take the next step. You have to have Drummond for the full season healthy. You have to have a healthy Kevin Love. And you have to have some unexpected guy step up, whether that's Okoro, Jetty, Dylan Windler. You have to have that one guy come up and be a big production. Because you think about guys like Larry Nance Jr., he's going to do what he does anywhere he goes. He's the kind of ultimate utility guy that's going to be good at doing what he does everywhere he goes. So you don't have to worry about him, but you gotta have other guys who come off the bench play very well.
Yeah, Okoro's going to get it for us. He's got it. Don't worry about it, Sam. Okoro. So we even talk about the Hawks, the Bulls.
The Hawks are a team that's kind of scary. They're almost like a year ahead of the Cavs in their rebuild.
Yep. I'm not worried about the Knicks. I'm pretty low in the Magic. So not a lot of room for the Cavs, but I do think it's possible to kind of fight for those 2, maybe 3 spots. I think if we sniff the playoffs, I think that might get Drummond back maybe for a 1 or 2 year if you want. I don't know. But anyone else, Sam, you see maybe potentially kind of not be on the move, but just maybe get a little creative with the roster?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're looking, at this point to make any kind of blockbuster, obviously. And I don't think you'll be able to trade Kevin Love and get what you're looking for in return for him. Maybe next year, when he's in his contract year, you might be able to move him, but I don't think you'll be able to move him this year unless somebody really thinks he could help put them over the top. But I there's always those deals that can come out of nowhere. It's going to be based on how these first, they play 72 games, say your first 15, 20 games go. Then that's when you kind of say, you reevaluate and say, okay, things are going so well right now, we're not going to make a move, or, okay, we here's our goal. Let's say our goal is to get the 8th seed. Okay. And we want to get these young guys some playoff experience. How we do that? How do we build the roster to do that? Is it set as it is, or do we have to make some moves? Right now, I'm not real sure what the goal is. I think that they don't know. I think they're going to roll out the ball and say, go win some games.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can win. And if we do, well, then everything changes. If we don't, then you kind of got to think about, okay, well, maybe there's some moving parts that we got to make moves with here. And we got to move Drummond, and who do we got to throw in to maybe move Drummond? Do we got to throw in a younger guy like a Garland or a Windler or something like that? Those are questions that could come up. But I think right now, Chase, all you can do is roll out the ball, see how it goes, and then take it from there.
Love it. Love it. The Cavs ended the preseason 2-2. They won the first 2 against the Pacers, dropped the last 2 against the Knicks. I don't want to spend a ton of time on the preseason, Sam, but heading into the season, what would you say is this Cleveland Cavaliers team's strength right now?
I think their biggest strength, other than the coaching, would be what has resulted from JB Bickerstaff. And I wrote this in a column on the website. What he has them doing, which is what you want, because you're going to go through injuries. You're going to go through, guys not playing as well as they normally do. You're going to go through some things. So what's going to be your constant? And that's going to be, no matter what happens, we want to play with continuity and we want to play hard. And Bickerstaff has gotten them to do that. That last preseason game was a nightmare. But I would say more often than not, the Cavs have played smart, hard, together, and determined. They don't always have and Bickerstaff said this, we're not going to be the most talented team on the floor. So we gotta do all those things.
Yeah.
And that will be their greatest strength under him, is playing together. And one of the things he said in the preseason, and I thought that's a great plan. And he said, you know what we want to be? We want to be the team that everybody else hates to see on the schedule, because we're a big
grind city, baby.
Yeah. We scratch and claw and fight tooth and nail and annoy the opponent. And that's a good goal for this team to have.
Yeah.
And I think that they will. That, to me, is their biggest strength going into the season. If they continue to do that, they're going to be a team that can be proud of themselves and make their fan base proud and start moving in the right direction in terms of, hey, we're building something here.
And you led me right to my next question. What would be their biggest weakness going into the season?
Defense. They have not been good defensively, and most of the cast is back. Their best perimeter defender was Tristan Thompson. He guarded people. I mean, last year when they played the Lakers, Tristan was a guy on LeBron. When he switched, Tristan took great pride in getting switched out onto the perimeter on guards and wings out on the perimeter. I would hear him in the locker room bragging about it, and saying, I'd shut down this guard or whatever. And he did. And even with that, they weren't very good defensively on the perimeter. So they've got a long way to go defensively. And the good news is, if you can teach those guards to say, look, don't let your guys shoot threes. drive him into the lane because we've got Andre Drummond back there and we've got JaVale McGee back there. So get the opposing guards to put the ball on the floor and move into the lane because you have some big bodies and some rim protectors in there now, which they didn't really have consistently over the past few years. So I think the defense it really needs to improve. The your young backcourt is the head of the snake when it comes to defense. So those guys have to be better, and I think that's their big concern right now. I think they're gonna they'll be able to score. They got enough guys who can score that they'll be able to do that. But are they going to be able to get stops when they need them most? That's a huge question right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking ahead to week 1 tomorrow, Wednesday, the 23rd, they open their season at home against the Hornets. Saturday, the 26th, they go to Detroit to play the Pistons. And then Sunday, the 27th, they host the 76ers. That's their first week 1 slate games. Sam, what record do you see the Cavs having come next Monday?
Well, I told my buddy after 5 games, they'd be 4-1. So
love it. I love it.
Because if you really look at their schedule, they have that opportunity.
Jump out early. Yeah.
But I mean, I you would think that they could beat the Hornets, especially if the Hornets don't have Gordon Hayward that first game. We've got the pinky issue. I don't know what his status is at this time. But they, you would think that, hey, we can take care of the Hornets at home. Okay. And then you do that. And maybe, Detroit's a team that's kind of been thrown together too. Maybe you can go up there and get that, and then you lose at home to the Sixers. So I really think if they play like they did during their home games against the Pacers in the preseason, and show the kind of unity and camaraderie and toughness that they did under JB Bickerstaff to end last season, I think they can get off to a nice start.
I agree. I think 2-1 is very, very doable. I think we'll know by the time we record our next episode if Drummond's going to be here, if he's going to resign, what kind of season we're going to have. I don't want to say we have a litmus test kind of, season break games here the first couple of weeks, but we really will know the first 4, 5, 6 games what kind of team this Cavs team is and what their ceiling is this year. I'm optimistic. Obviously, I really, really want to believe and think the best in this team. And really my confidence stems from JB Bickerstaff and what he's been able to do and what he can do. And then I just see that young core and I get excited. I believe in Sexton. I really like him. I love KPJ, but Okoro, he stole my heart, man. He is the guy. And I don't think he's not going to start for long. I would expect by this time in January, he's going to be starting and logging minutes.
And well on his way to the Hall of Fame.
And having his head right beside J.R. Smith with the brown fat head in my recording studio. All right, Sam. Well, this about does it for this episode of Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. We're going to do our best to be more consistent this season because we want to provide you with the very best Cavs content and analysis in the podcast universe. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back. You can follow Sam on Twitter and catch all of his work and writings at 48minutes.com and outkick.com. Sam, you want to kind of tell us a little bit about those websites?
Yeah, real fast. 48 Minutes used to be Amico Hoops, but there are like 7 other Amico Hoops now. So I shamelessly took the name 48 Minutes from a Terry Pluto book, which was an excellent book from the late 80s, early 90s about a Cavs Celtics game. So it's now 48minutes.com. And if you want to read, by chance, me write about like the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Indians.
Let's go.
The sometimes NHL, anything else, you can find that on outkick.com. But primarily 48 Minutes is where I do all the Cavs NBA stuff. We have a full team of writers this year for the first time.
Good.
We have a former political speechwriter who also writes Hollywood screenplays as his full-time job. He is going to cover the Lakers for us. He's in Hollywood. So
Nice.
we've got all kinds of cool things coming to 48 Minutes, and it's going to start probably, I would say, the December 23rd, the day that the Cavs open the season, is when we're really going to put our foot to the pedal. So please, everybody, give us a follow, and we would be happy to follow you back as well.
Well, we are here to help. Sam, always a pleasure, brother. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too. I can't wait. I already know what I'm getting, some of my presents. I just know because I told my wife. She never lets me down. So
Well, that's great. That's great. Hey, we'll talk here in a couple days, Sam. And one of my favorite parts of the show, Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.